He stood in the office that used to be his father's, told me he sold the vineyard, our life, like it was nothing. The vines we planted with love are gone now, replaced by blueprints and champagne flutes for strangers. My own son called it dead weight, like we weren't the ones who bled into that soil. But Peter left me something, a letter for when Jacob forgot who he was. And I think he's starting to remember. Too late to undo the silence he planted, in place of roots. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you are watching from. Like this video, tap the bell icon, and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the stories again. My name is Margaret Carter, and I am 64 years old. Mum, Jacob said, standing before the wide desk that used to belong to Peter. Thanks for coming. I nodded, glancing around the office. The windows were the same. The old oak floors still creaked in the corners, but everything else was colder, sleeker, modern, soulless. My eyes found the wall behind him. The gold-rimmed frame that once held our family portrait still hung there, but it was empty now. You took the photo down, I said quietly. He turned, following my gaze. Oh, yeah. Didn't really fit the vibe. I let out a soft breath. We had that taken for your father's 50th. You were what, 12? Still had braces. Jacob chuckled once, then looked back at me with a blank expression. Things change. I studied his face. Same hazel eyes as Peter, but none of the warmth. I suppose they do. He sat down behind the desk. So, I wanted to tell you in person, before you hear it elsewhere. I pulled my coat tighter. Hear what? I sold the vineyard. The words didn't land right away. My ears heard them, but my heart stalled. You what? The vineyard, he repeated, as if I'd misheard. All of it. The land, the equipment, even the tasting room. I gripped the back of the chair in front of me. Jacob, that vineyard is your father. It's our legacy. It was, he corrected. Now it's just potential. That land is worth a fortune. Developers have been circling it for years. I stared at him, stunned. You didn't even ask me. He leaned back. It was my call. Legally, it passed to me after Dad, and you said you didn't want to manage it anymore. I didn't want to sell it to strangers. I thought you understood that. Jacob's voice hardened. I've been carrying this thing for years, Mom. The taxes, the repairs, the staffing. It's dead weight. I'm done dragging it forward, out of obligation. Dead weight? My fingers tightened on the chair. You were raised in that soil. You learned how to walk between those vines. He looked at me like I was speaking a different language. This isn't personal. It's entirely personal. We stood there in silence for a moment, his cold office pressing in. He broke the tension with a dismissive wave. Look, it's done. The contracts are signed. They're breaking ground next month. I nodded once, sharp and quiet. So that's it. The vineyard. Your father's dream, my life's work, sold off like an old car. He didn't respond. I turned to leave. At the door, I paused. You know, Jacob, there's an empty frame on the wall behind you. I think it fits better than you know. He didn't look up. Back home, I set my purse on the side table and walked straight to the study. The house was quiet, except for the distant ticking of Peter's old clock on the mantel. I lit the small lamp by the window and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. My fingers trembled as I pushed aside old ledgers and garden journals until I found it. A thick envelope with Peter's handwriting across the front, for when he forgets. I sat down slowly. I traced the ink with my thumb. It felt like he was here again, sitting beside me, his hand over mine. I didn't forget, Peter, I whispered. But he did. I didn't open the envelope yet, just placed it on the desk in front of me. Some things aren't meant to be rushed. Not legacies, not endings, and certainly not this. The gravel crunched under my shoes, but it wasn't the same crunch I remembered. It used to sound soft and warm, like it welcomed you home. Now it felt sharp, cold. The vines were gone. I stood at the edge of the slope, where rows of cabernet used to stretch into the hills. All that was left was churned dirt and broken roots, torn out like they never meant anything. Carla was near the old shed, loading hand tools into the back of her pickup. She looked older, not just in years, but in weight, like something had been taken from her too. Carla, I called softly. She looked up, her eyes lit for a second before dimming again. Ma'am, I walked closer. Don't call me that. Force of habit. She gave a tired half smile, then picked up a rusted spade. You're leaving? She nodded, brushing her gloves against her jeans. He said there's no point paying someone to watch dirt. His words. My chest tightened. You've been here longer than he's been alive. She shrugged, quiet. He said loyalty isn't profitable anymore. I looked out over the bare field. I remembered Peter's hands, stained purple during harvest. Jacob used to run between the rows, laughing with his mouth full of grapes. Do you remember when he got stuck under the irrigation pipe? I asked. Carla chuckled. He cried like the world was ending. Peter made him dig his way out. He said, if you get in the mud, you better learn to get out on your own. Carla closed the truck bed. He doesn't remember any of that now, does he? I didn't answer. I just hugged her. She held me for a while, the way old trees brace each other during wind. If you ever need help with anything, she said, even just someone to talk to. I squeezed her hand. I'll find you. As she drove away, I stood there, staring at the place where the vines should have been. The soil looked confused, as if waiting for something to grow. But it wouldn't. Not anymore. The front door to Jacob's house was open when I arrived. Emily's car was parked perfectly in the driveway, spotless as always. I stepped into the kitchen and found her stirring something on the stove. She didn't look up. I thought I'd stop by, I said. She turned, surprised. Oh, hi, I came from the Vineyard. She blinked, then nodded slowly. Ah, right, the sale closes next week. Everything's already gone, I said. He didn't even wait. Emily stirred again, slowly. It's just land, Margaret. No, it's not. There was a long silence. The pot began to bubble. He says it's his time now, she finally said. That you had your chapter. He's writing his. I stared at her. Do you believe that? She kept her eyes on the pot. It's not really about belief. It's about what makes sense. Growth, progress. At the cost of memory? She sighed, too loud. He's not trying to hurt you, but he did. She said nothing. I gave him a legacy, I whispered. He's handing me silence. Emily turned off the burner. Look, I don't want to get in the middle. You already are, I said, more tired than angry. Whether you admit it or not. She picked up a spoon and began ladling soup into small containers. There's some extra if you want to take some home. I shook my head. I'm not hungry. Her shoulders stiffened. I left without another word. The bell above Monica's office door still jingled like it used to. That tiny sound always gave me a strange kind of comfort, like the world wasn't entirely broken. She looked up from her desk, eyes soft behind her glasses. You came. I sat across from her, and placed the envelope on the table. She didn't touch it right away, just stared at it. "This is the second will?" she asked. "Yes." Monica opened it carefully, pulling out the pages. Her lips moved as she read. Her brows lifted near the end. She looked up. "You know this changes everything." I nodded. "He can't touch the historical rights, not without your signature." "I know." She leaned back, thoughtful. "Peter really thought this through. He said Jacob would be quick with the land, but slow with the meaning. That's why he left me the roots." She smiled faintly. "That sounds like him." I touched the edge of the desk. "He forgot who we were, Monica. Not just me, all of us. And now?" I looked out the window. "Now I remind him." She folded the documents. "Are you ready to make him remember?" I met her eyes, steady, calm. "Yes." The chairs were white plastic, neatly arranged in rows under a tent that didn't belong here. Neither did the champagne flutes or the slick banner that read, "Redleaf Ridge, luxury living begins here." I sat in the back row, away from the cameras. The land behind the stage, our land, was flattened, stripped of its rose, its vines, its memory. All for this. Condos. A man with a headset tapped a mic. "We'll begin in 2 minutes, Mr. Carter." Jacob stepped onto the makeshift stage in a fitted suit. He looked proud, important, as if he hadn't been born with dirt under his nails and juice stains on his chin. "Thank you all for coming," he began, flashing his polished smile to the investors seated up front. "Redleaf Ridge isn't just a development. It's a transformation. This land has served its purpose, and now it's time for it to grow into something new." My stomach turned. "Some of you may know," he continued, "this was once a family vineyard. My late father ran it for decades, and before him, his father. Quaint, right?" He laughed softly. "But times change. We're not clinging to nostalgia. We're building a future." I looked down at my hands. They still smelled faintly of lavender and earth. He went on about sustainability and green spaces, but all I heard was erasure. "Questions?" he asked, stepping away from the podium. A woman in a red blazer raised her hand. "What does your mother think about the sale?" There was a pause. His eyes scanned the crowd and landed on me. I didn't move. Jacob cleared his throat. "She's proud, I think. She knows I'm honoring the land in my own way." I watched him lie with the same mouth that once kissed my forehead goodnight. The event wrapped up with applause and photo ops. I waited until the crowd thinned, then walked quietly toward him. He turned when he saw me. "Mum, you came." I did. He leaned in for a light hug, more for the remaining cameras than for me. "What did you think?" "I think," I said, "you speak well when you need to." He smiled tightly. "It's business. Optics matter." He slipped his hands into his pockets. "You really should have said something during the Q&A. I gave you the opening." I wasn't ready then. His brow furrowed. "Ready for what?" I pulled the envelope from my purse and held it out. "Peter left you the land, but he left me the soul." His jaw tightened. "What is this?" "Read it." He took it, flipping it over. "I already handled the estate." "No. You handled the surface. This is what he kept separate. For when you forgot." He looked around. No more cameras, no reporters, no investors nearby. "This changes nothing," he said, voice low. "It changes everything. The historical trust, the water rights, the name." "For glass and drywall," I said. "And you don't even know it." He folded the envelope and shoved it into his coat. "I'll have my lawyer look at it. Monica wrote it." He froze. "You're serious?" "I'm not here to bluff, Jacob." We stood there, mother and son, in the shadow of a land he no longer recognized and I could never forget. He turned and walked away without another word. I didn't follow. Let him sit with it. Let the silence grow roots where his glass towers couldn't. The front door burst open so hard the hinges cried out. Jacob didn't knock. He never did when he was angry. He stormed into the living room, waving the yellowed envelope like it was on fire. What game is this? I didn't flinch. You found the will. He tossed it onto the coffee table. Found it. You handed it to me, in front of investors. Do you realize what you've done? I stood from the armchair. I reminded you. Reminded me, he scoffed. No, you blindsided me. This says you hold the water rights. And the trust designation? Are you kidding? No, Jacob, I'm not. He stared at me like he didn't recognize who I was. You waited until I sold everything. Until the deal was sealed. I picked up the paper he never bothered to read before now. Your father divided it for a reason. He knew you'd rush. He gave me the land. And he gave me the soul. Jacob clenched his jaw. You've made that little speech already. Then maybe you should listen this time. He stepped closer. You tricked me, Mum. You deliberately kept this from me. No, I protected what you were too eager to destroy. That vineyard was a dead dream. No, I said, sharper now. It was our dream. Yours, mine, and your father's. You just chose to forget it. He turned away for a second, hands on his hips, pacing like a child denied dessert. I had architects lined up, investors. That land is worthless now without water or zoning permits. I walked over to the window. Then maybe you shouldn't have treated it like a parking lot. He spun around. Do you even understand what this cost me? Yes, I whispered. Everything. He paused. What? You lost everything, Jacob. Not because of me, because of what you erased. He looked away, but his silence cracked something open. After your father died, you begged me not to sell the vineyard. You said, don't let them take it, Mum. It's still ours. He closed his eyes. I remember, I said, because it was the first time you cried in front of me, since you were 10. His voice dropped. That was different. No, that was real, and you buried it. He reached for the document again, hands tight. So what now? You want to fight me in court? Humiliate me more? I want you to see what you've become. He looked up at me then, and for the first time, I saw fear. Not fear of me, but fear of the truth. He slammed the document back onto the table and marched toward the door. You're just bitter because it's not your name on the deed. No, I said softly. I'm bitter because it used to mean something. He yanked the door open, hesitated, then turned back. This isn't over. I know. He left without looking back. I walked to the window, watching him peel away in that sleek black car he loved, more than the land he was born on. The vineyard hill stood quiet in the distance, dry, waiting. I whispered, let's see how well concrete grows without water. The chairs in the council hall hadn't changed in 30 years, still creaky, still unforgiving. But the plaque above the podium caught my eye. Preserve what holds memory. Peter would have liked that. Roger entered with a clipboard tucked under his arm. His hair was thinner now, but his eyes lit up the same way they used to when he and Peter argued over irrigation strategies. Margaret, he said, shaking my hand with both of his. I was hoping it really was you. Still alive and stubborn, I smiled. He chuckled. I heard about Jacob's little reinvention plan, condos on Carter soil. That doesn't sit right. It shouldn't, I said. Peter wouldn't have wanted concrete where the old vines slept. Roger grew quiet. He'd never have wanted a shopping plaza. I want to file, I said, sliding the envelope across the table. Full application. Protected heritage site. He opened it and scanned quickly. You've got everything here. Water rights, founding documentation, even the original planting record. My husband made 2 wills. One was for business, the other was for memory. Roger leaned forward. If this goes through, Jacob won't be able to break ground. I know. You'll make enemies. I folded my hands. I already have. He gave me a slow, respectful nod. I'll present this next Thursday. Quietly. Let it settle in before it draws noise. I stood. That's all I need. By Friday morning, Emily was on my doorstep. She was holding a gift basket wrapped in cellophane and tied with a velvet ribbon. Grapefruit-scented soaps, imported crackers, a jar of truffle honey no one in this family ever ate. Hi, Mom, she said, too brightly. I thought I'd stop by. I opened the door wider, just enough. You're here early. She laughed. Well, I figured we should talk, face to face. You know, less confusion. I didn't smile. Come in. She walked past me like she owned the floor. I brought you something, she said, placing the basket on the dining table. I looked at it, then looked at her. Did Jacob ask you to come? She blinked. No. I mean, he mentioned the council thing. But I came because I care. I raised an eyebrow. Look. She sat down, smoothing her dress. We know this whole heritage site filing is probably just symbolic. But it's causing a lot of stress. To the team. To Jacob. To the land, I said flatly. It's causing peace. She gave a quick smile. You've always been so passionate about that vineyard. I get it. No, I said gently. You don't. She opened her purse, pulling out a sleek envelope. He's prepared to make some concessions. Maybe name a walkway after Peter. Or a small memorial garden. I stood. Would you like tea? She paused. Sure. I moved slowly to the kettle, watching the steam rise. She stayed seated, tapping her phone beneath the table when she thought I wasn't looking. I placed 2 cups down and poured. You take it sweet, right? She nodded. Thanks, Mom. The word tasted strange in her mouth. We sipped in silence. She cleared her throat. We can work this out. Just don't let this heritage thing get in the way of family. I looked her in the eyes. This is family. She blinked. I mean, we're trying to build something too. Jacob's not the enemy. No, I said. He's just forgotten where he comes from. She glanced at the basket. At least take the gift. I stood up and opened the front door. Tell him I got the message. She hesitated. Then gathered her things and walked past me. Thank you for the tea, she said. I didn't answer. That afternoon, I took the basket to the women's shelter on 4th and Marlow. The receptionist smiled. Someone's going to feel really cared for. I hope so, I said. It's time someone did. Later, Monica met me at my kitchen table with the council receipt in hand. They're moving faster than expected, she said. Roger slipped it into a lower docket. Less press. Good. But Emily showed up to the land use board. She's trying to float compromise language. They're rattled. I stirred my tea. It's not about punishing him. Monica looked at me. It's about protecting what matters, I said. She nodded. Outside, a breeze carried the smell of turned soil. I didn't need a war. I just needed the roots to remember themselves. And I had a feeling Jacob was starting to realize he couldn't stop them from growing back. You know this is a trap, Monica said, arms crossed as I pinned my brooch to my blouse. "Yes," I replied. She leaned against the doorframe. "Then why are you doing it?" "Because he's already told his story. I think it's time I sit beside him while he lies." She exhaled slowly. "Say what you need, but say it once, clean, no explanations." I nodded and adjusted my collar. "And if he tries to use you?" "He already did," I said, softly. "But today, the cameras are mine too." The studio was colder than I expected. Lights, powder, clip mics. A young assistant offered me water. I declined. Jacob stood across the room in a charcoal suit. He smiled like this was a wedding and not a reckoning. "Mom," he said, walking over. "Glad you came." "You were very convincing on the phone," I said. He laughed, too light. "We need to show unity, that it's not a feud, just a misunderstanding." I looked him in the eye. This was never a misunderstanding. He tapped the mic on his lapel. "Let's keep it civil, okay?" I gave a single nod. The host was a woman named Carrie. Sharp hair, soft voice. She smiled wide as the countdown began. "Welcome back," she said to the camera. Joining us today is Jacob Carter, CEO of the Redleaf Ridge Development Project, and his mother, Margaret Carter, former co-owner of the Carter Vineyard. She turned to Jacob. "Jacob, you've faced some criticism lately. Some say this land was more than just property." He nodded solemnly. "Absolutely. My mother and I shared deep roots there. That's why we're here, to show we're still a family. This project honors what came before." I looked at him, steady. Carrie turned to me. "Margaret, how does it feel seeing the vineyard transformed into something new?" Jacob gently touched my hand. Performative, practiced. I smiled. Funny. He sold our dream before I could say goodbye. There was a beat of silence. Carrie blinked. "I'm sorry, could you elaborate?" I turned to her, voice calm. "We didn't talk about this. He never asked. He never looked back. That land raised my husband. It raised my son. But now it's a sales pitch." Jacob shifted beside me. "Mom, we agreed we—" "No," I said, pulling my hand away. "You agreed. I stayed quiet." Carrie leaned forward. "There are rumors of legal filings, protected trust declarations." "Not rumors," I said. "Facts." Jacob's jaw tensed. "Then are you trying to block your son's progress?" she asked gently. "I'm trying to preserve my husband's grave," I said, "and my son's memory before it all became concrete." Another pause, then soft shuffling behind the cameras. "I think we're done here," Jacob said, standing up. I stood with him. "We are." And I walked off set, leaving him to his silence. The gate to the community garden creaked just the way it used to. Rusty, familiar, like it never forgot me, even if so many others had. Rows of little plots stretched ahead, bursting with herbs, tomatoes, wildflowers. A splash of purple caught my eye. Grapes. I stepped closer. "Careful," a voice called from the other side of the vines. "We're mid-watering, and these little ones don't respect boundaries." A small boy rounded the corner, his hands stained deep purple, his mouth half covered in juice. He stopped when he saw me and smiled, cheeks full. "I didn't eat them," he said, obviously lying. I laughed. "Of course you didn't." He darted past me, chasing another child through the rows. "Benji," a woman's voice rang out. "What did I say about the grapes?" She came into view, hair tied up in a scarf, clipboard under one arm. Then she paused. Mrs. Carter? 3 hours later, Monica called. They're calling you brave, she said. I didn't do anything brave. You said the truth. That counts for something now. My doorbell rang 5 times that day. Strangers dropping off flowers. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in months left notes in my mailbox. By evening, I had 6 bouquets on my kitchen table, all from people who saw me, finally. My phone buzzed around 9:30 p.m. Jacob, you've ruined everything. I stared at the screen, then placed the phone face down. I didn't reply. I wasn't done. I blinked. Yes. She broke into a wide smile. Grace Martin. I interned with Peter one summer, 2007. I tilted my head, then nodded slowly. You were the one who used to sing to the sunflowers. She laughed. Still do, just with an audience now. I looked around at the children, the tidy chaos of young life. You're doing something good here. You and Peter taught me everything, she said, walking closer. I remember he said soil was like memory. If you care for it, it returns the favor. I swallowed hard. Would you talk to the kids? She asked. About vines, soil, even just for 5 minutes. I hesitated, then nodded. Yes, I think I'd like that. They gathered in a circle near the old compost bin. Some sat, some picked grass. One boy poked at a worm with intense focus. I crouched beside a pot of lavender and ran my fingers through the leaves. You know, I said, grapevines are a little like people. They need support, structure, something to hold on to. A few heads tilted. But they also need space, sunlight, a bit of struggle too. The best grapes grow when the vines have to reach. Ng raised his stained hand. Is that why they taste sweet? I smiled. Exactly. They nodded, some more interested than others, but all listening. And for the first time in weeks, I felt useful. Grace walked me to the gate. That was beautiful, she said. I brushed my hands on my coat. I didn't think I had anything left to say. Well, you did, and they needed it. A boy ran up and handed me a tiny bouquet of clovers and dandelions. For you, he said shyly. I took it with both hands. Thank you. Grace squeezed my arm. Come back any time. I left the gate slightly ajar behind me. At home, the mail was waiting in a neat stack on the hall table. One envelope stood out. Thick, expensive, embossed with a logo I knew too well. I opened it slowly, read the first line. We formally request that you cease and desist all attempts to interfere with the Red Leaf Ridge Development Project. No apology. No hello. Just threat. I carried the letter to the fireplace and lit the edge with a match. The flame curled the paper, devoured the signature, and left only ash. I stood in the quiet and looked at Peter's photo on the mantel. He's not the boy you raised, I whispered. The fire crackled, but said nothing back. The courtroom smelled like old wood and nervous sweat. I sat beside Monica at the petitioner's table, hands folded in my lap, trying not to look at Jacob. But I could feel him, 2 rows over, rigid, jaw tight, expensive suit hiding the boy who once crawled through rows of vines just to surprise his father with a bunch of underripe grapes. Don't speak unless the judge asks, Monica whispered. I know. And if Jacob says something awful? I gave a small smile. He will. The bailiff called the session to order. Judge Morales entered, glasses low on her nose. Her robe tugged neatly at the collar. Mr. Carter is contesting the validity of a secondary will, she said. filed under heritage preservation and property rights. Counsel, begin. Jacob's lawyer stood, slick and sure. Your Honor, this second will was concealed, unsigned in traditional form, and produced years after the initial transfer of land. We believe it was created under emotional distress. Objection, Monica said sharply. That's speculation. The video speaks for itself. The judge raised a brow. Let's see the video. The screen flickered to life. Peter, thinner than I remembered, lay propped up in our old bed. His voice rasped. If Jacob ever forgets, give him this. Our vineyard dies the day she stops believing in it. It was never just land. It was her breath. I heard gasps, one from the clerk, one from behind me. Monica stood. This recording is timestamped 2 days before Peter Carter passed. It's his final statement, submitted with the second will. The handwriting was verified by a forensic analyst. Report submitted to the court. The judge nodded. Continue. Monica stepped forward. Your Honor, this isn't just a legal issue. It's about what Peter intended. He divided the vineyard, the title to Jacob, the soul to Margaret. That second will holds the water rights, the heritage trust, and the original trademark, none of which can be overridden by land deeds alone. Jacob shifted, eyes still fixed ahead. Closing arguments passed like fog. My chest was tight, but I kept my face calm. I'd already lost Peter. I wasn't losing what he left me. The judge cleared her throat. I've reviewed both wills. The secondary document is valid under State Statute 2.19, which permits non-traditional declarations in the presence of recorded end-of-life testimony. The trust designation and heritage protection will remain intact under Mrs. Carter's control. She looked up. Judgment in favor of the respondent. The vineyard cannot be developed. There was no applause, just the soft shuffle of people standing, and someone in the gallery sighing with relief. Jacob didn't move. I stepped into the aisle, passing him. His eyes stayed on the floor, but as I neared the doors, I heard his voice. You'll die alone with your greats. I stopped, turned. Maybe, I said quietly. But they'll still taste like family. He looked up, just once, and I walked away. Outside, cameras flashed. Mrs. Carter, do you plan to reopen the vineyard? What would Peter say if he saw this win? Are you trying to keep your son from the land entirely? I kept my eyes forward and exited through the side door, where Monica's car was waiting. She opened it for me. Do you feel lighter? I nodded. The vineyard is safe, I said, for now. And I knew Peter would have smiled, not because we won, but because we remembered. The old porch creaked beneath my chair, just the way it used to. I shifted my weight and watched the sun stretch across the vineyard, warm and golden, touching every row like a blessing. Children's laughter echoed from the southern slope, where rows of young lavender now bloomed between the baby vines, purple and green, weaving together like memory and hope. Grace walked past with a clipboard tucked under her arm and dirt on her knees. We finally got the irrigation timers fixed, she called out, grinning. Carla said the new roots are settling faster than expected. I raised my mug. Told you the soil still remembers. She laughed and kept walking toward the compost bins. Carla was near the fence line, inspecting the trellis work. She wore the same sun hat from 20 years ago, patched now with blue thread. I watched her adjust a loose wire, pause, and gently touch a sprout, pushing through the dirt. The land was quiet, not silent, just calm, alive, and so was I. Later that afternoon, I sat at the old tasting room's front window. now cleaned and gleaming, with fresh paint on the walls. A pot of rosemary sat near the sill, just like Peter used to keep. A small group of volunteers harvested the first handful of grapes from the eastern row. Not much yet, but enough. Benji, the boy with sticky hands, ran past with a basket almost too big for him. "Miss Margaret, look." He held it up proudly. 3 bunches of grapes, uneven, a little bruised, but perfect. I smiled. "Your hands are purple again." He looked at them. "Oops." Grace called for him, and he darted off, laughing. I stood and walked slowly outside, the air thick with late summer sweetness. That's when I saw the car. Jacob's silver SUV paused just past the gravel road, engine humming, windows up. He didn't get out. He looked right at me, or maybe past me. I couldn't tell. I didn't wave. He didn't either. After a moment, the car turned and disappeared down the hill. I breathed in, deeply. Whatever he was looking for, he wouldn't find it here anymore. At dusk, the porch glowed orange with the last light of day. I poured 1 glass of red, not from a bottle, but from a small barrel we'd aged together. Just enough for a single pour. I walked to the edge of the porch and raised it toward the trees, the rose, the sky. "To you," I whispered. We didn't lose the land. We remembered it. The wind rustled softly, lifting the hem of my dress. I sipped. The taste was earthy, full, alive. I closed my eyes and let the silence hold me. Not triumphant, just free.